Hi, and welcome to the Diamond Report for Friday, April 7th, 2017. This is your host, Doug Diamond. I've got us looking at Earthquake 3D, the last 48 hours worth of earthquakes globally. As I mentioned yesterday, we had a vast range of thousands of miles of silent area, silent zone, where there had been no earthquake activity happening, and now we are seeing some earthquake activity pop back up in there again from about here where Vanuatu is, clear over here to where these quakes are near Malaysia. This whole stretch was all silent yesterday. And now we've seen several 4.5s and greater in that area. So we have, in fact, seen some movement come back, which is actually a welcome sign. You don't want silent zones because that could often mean further larger movement. I also mentioned the area around Nepal. Let's see here. Let me drop this down again. And in fact, a 4.0 earthquake happened just to the west of Nepal in northern India. So that has now moved in just the last 24 hours. So we are seeing some movement again in that area, which I think is a good sign overall. There's still several deep quakes in that area around Fiji and Vanuatu that we're going to have to watch, because the deep quakes almost always result in larger, shallower movement over the next week or so. As far as the other place that I mentioned, it has not moved yet, and that is the area around southern Ecuador, northern Peru, but it will. It's just a matter of time. Now we have a bit of a silent zone through here, through Central America and even into Colombia, where we'll usually see some quakes. So we need to watch that area as well. And now on to the headlines. Just say no. Trump being pressured by neocons to attack Syria. This is from Paul Joseph Watson of InfoWars. President repeatedly warned Obama not to attempt regime change in 2013. Pepsi forced to remove propaganda commercial. SJWs lash out against Pepsi commercial with Kendall Jenner. From David Knight, neocons wag the dog in Syria. Trump being tricked by the globalists into an unnecessary war. And even more, a Marine veteran warns Trump, "You're being duped on Syria. You're falling for the dumbest thing I've ever seen." That's a Paul Joseph Watson article. Yeah, I don't understand why Trump would fall for this nonsense. Tommy Robinson hunts down the punk who called for his assassination. The punk said, "Please someone just murder Tommy Robinson." Rand Paul says Rice committed a crime, did something that's devastating. That's on Breitbart. Hillary said U.S. should take out Assad's airfields. I still believe we should have done a no-fly zone. From a BBC reporter, U.S. military strike on Syria could be imminent. And then right after that, Trump attacks Syria. Will Russia respond? 50 cruise missiles launched at Syrian airbase. Russia warns of negative consequences if U.S. targets Syria. That's on Reuters. And from NBC News, U.S. launches missiles at Syrian base after chemical weapons attack. How will Russia respond? Hours before airstrikes, Hillary Clinton called for the bombing of Syrian airfields. That's on Fox News. From Michael Snyder, End of the American Dream, hashtag no war in Syria. If you don't want World War III in the Middle East, you need to let your voice be heard now, because tomorrow might be too late. From RT.com, ISIS used U.S. missile strike to launch new offensive near Palmyra. British DJ sentenced to prison after spinning a remix of Islamic call to prayer. That's on the Telegraph. Kim Jong-un places North Korea on, quote, brink of war status. Saber rattling on Korean peninsula reaching fever pitch. That's from The Sun. And on the Daily Caller, Schumer and Pelosi break from colleagues and back Trump's missile strike on Syria. And they say it's the right thing to do. Well, you know, if they're backing it, it's absolutely the wrong thing to do. A report says Trump is considering replacing Reince Priebus. Well, why did he put him there in the first place? Senator Rand Paul opposes Trump's airstrikes in Syria. The U.S. was not attacked. That's on Breitbart. Couldn't agree more. Trump strikes Syrian base, an Alex Jones analysis. From RT.com, Farage on Syria strike. Where will intervention end? affirms support for Trump but confused by military action. Yeah, aren't we all? Stockholm incident, a lorry or a truck rams people. Swedish police said a number of people were injured and they are treating it as terrorism, as they rightfully should. That's on BBC News. I mean, ISIS has training manuals and training videos on how to ram crowds with large vehicles. Syria crisis live updates on InfoWars. Up-to-date analysis on the crisis in Syria. In a big win for Trump, Senate approves his conservative court pick. This is from Reuters. Fills the seat left vacant by the late Justice Scalia. National Israeli study, iodine is key. New report explains how iodine helps the human body. Yeah, absolutely. If you're not taking nascent iodine or some sort of pure form of iodine, you're missing out. You really need to be doing something like that, in my opinion. Of course, I'm not a doctor. Hilarious, the mainstream media says probiotics are a fraud. How about that? From Reuters, Russian PM says the U.S. airstrikes are one step away from clashing with Russia. In propaganda madness, North Korea pushes WW3. North Korea continues to instigate a fight with America. English film icon praises Brexit. Quote, I'd rather be a poor master than a rich servant. A Hollywood legend dismisses racism and xenophobia smears. Conservatives are winning the culture war. Liberals have pushed too hard and people are fleeing their ideology en masse. Susan Rice is extremely confused. Russian forces were notified in advance. Pentagon statement on airstrikes in Syria. Trump unleashes military strikes, 59 Tomahawk missiles hit Syria. Have Goldman Sachs and the deep state taken over the Trump administration? Boy, it sure looks that way. I hate to say it. A major terror attack is coming and the U.S. is next. Mock IED on board Chicago-bound flight. That's on shtfplan.com. From Zero Hedge, Putin responds, Syria strikes cripple U.S.-Russia relations. Deploys missile warship to Syria. Russia to upgrade Syria air defenses. Suspends airspace pact with U.S. March payrolls crumble, only 98,000 jobs added despite the slide in unemployment rate. White House shakeup? Rumors swirl that Bannon and Priebus are on the chopping block. And more on the attack in Sweden. Terror in Sweden, at least 5 people dead after stolen truck rams pedestrians in Stockholm shopping center and 3 gunmen open fire before police bundle a suspect to the ground. Republican Senate hawks praise Trump for bombing Syria. Of course they do. That's when you know you've done the wrong thing. Was Trump's military strike authorized? Republican Rand Paul says he must seek approval like Obama did before his botched red line, and Pelosi demands Congress come back for a debate. U.S. alerted Russian military 30 minutes before airstrike in Syria, but made no direct contact with Putin as Tillerson accuses Moscow of being complicit in chemical weapons attack. You're a Democrat. What furious Steve Bannon told Jared Kushner amid escalating West Wing battle for Trump's ear. World War III fears. Kim Jong-un declares he's on the brink of a war with the U.S. as Trump is urged to assassinate the North Korean despot. Brink of World War III. You planned this. Putin accuses U.S. of plotting the strike before the chemical hit. I'm sure that's probably what happened. On Breitbart, U.S. woman stabbed to death by a migrant who recently arrived in France. They were shooting from the lorry. Eyewitness speaks after truck rams Stockholm shoppers. That's on the Express. Neil Gorsuch officially confirmed to the Supreme Court. That's on Zero Hedge. After string of Islamist attacks, gay voters in France embrace Marine Le Pen. That's on the Gateway Pundit. On Sputnik News, U.S. attacks on Syria irresponsible could lead to a global war, says a German official. I hate to say it, but he's right. Another neocon puppet. Trump's former backers jump ship after Syria airstrike. That's on RT.com. Yeah, it's not looking good. Savage warns on war with Russia. Who got to you, Mr. President? That's on WND.com. Russian warship steaming towards U.S. destroyers off Syria coast. Even more evidence proving Trump was wrong about this. A CNN host says Trump became president after bombing Syria. You know when CNN's on your side, you really messed up. Sweden terror, horrified Britain describes seeing lifeless bodies in Stockholm atrocity. U.S. was not attacked. Strike on Syria divides U.S. lawmakers in both parties. It's on RT.com. Farage says a lot of Trump voters will be scratching their heads over Syria airstrikes. That's on Breitbart. Yeah, I'm one of them. From Sputnik News, Poodle Trump runs with dogs of war. An X22 report, economy is imploding at a faster pace and you need to be prepared. Prophecy watchers on high alert as President Trump launched strike against Syria on the 77th day in office. Boy, Matt Peterson of the Daily Crow will have something to say about that, I'm sure. Russia accuses U.S. of breaching international law with airstrike on Syrian airbase as UN hears America acted like judge and executioner. We cannot watch hypocrites attack us, Syrian MP rages at Trump's stupid missile strikes. It's on the Express. From Natural News, space weather can cause cascading collapse across critical human civilization infrastructure, blocking rail, transport, aviation, and food delivery. The hunt for Europe's most wanted man, terrorist ringleader who rammed a truck into shoppers in Stockholm, killing at least 5 people, is on the loose after fleeing chaotic scene during the dramatic shootout. Again, what more do you want to prove that you did the wrong thing? Islamist rebels praise missile strike. It is definitely a positive development, they say. Before you liberals freak out about Trump-mageddon, Hillary Clinton called for direct strikes on Syrians' airfields just hours before Trump launched missiles. Boy, if they're on the same page, something is really wrong. Swedish police make an arrest in truck terror attack. That's from a report. That's on Sputnik News. U.S. missile strike in Syria. What we know so far about the target, the victims, and reactions. It's on RT.com. Peace out. Could World War III really happen? The risks, the players, and the weapons that bring on the apocalypse. World leaders pick their side on Syria. Israel and Britain lead praise for strike, which will be heard from Iran to North Korea. But Russia remains firm in support for Assad. A 1,389-year-old phobia? Western ignorance of history and Western ignorance of Islam's troublesome doctrines. It is this connection that allows Islam's apologists to get away with so many distortions and outright lies meant to shield Islam. For more in-depth education on Islam, I would highly recommend listening to Dr. Bill Warner. He's been our guest on Lost Arts Radio many, many times, and every time he comes on, I learn more and more about Islam, things that I never knew before. You can find out more at lostartsradio.com. A YouTube video that looks pretty interesting, The Giants of Sweden and the Bible. Museum cover-ups. And then Steve says, look at the size of this skull and the story behind it. Seymour Hersh says Hillary approved sending Libya's sarin to the Syrian rebels. Steve says that's a must-read. It's on strategic-culture.org. The Empire Strikes Back, the deep state campaign to destroy Trump's presidency. That's on WND.com. Donald Trump's Syrian airstrike, a significant blow to U.S.-Russia relations, says the Kremlin. That's from The Guardian. Yeah, I have no doubt that it is. U.S. cyber attacks may be bringing North Korean missiles down. U.S. Pacific Command estimates that the weapon flew for a maximum of 9 minutes and traveled less than 40 miles before spinning out of control into the Sea of Japan. That's on the London Telegraph. And from Indonesia, Banda Api awakens after 30 years of slumber. Evacuations begin. So more volcanic activity. Cyber firm behind Russian hacking claims has ties to Soros-supported think tank. That's on disobedientmedia.com. From All News Pipeline, Insider calls out mainstream media for publishing fake news article, sugarcoating viral story, warning 9 out of 10 Americans could be dead in a year following an EMP attack. Why does the mainstream media continue to downplay the very real EMP threat to America? Because they don't want people to be prepared. You have no right to speak. Social justice warriors are at it again. Communism taught in U.S. colleges. These colleges and universities are now daycare centers for activists and snowflakes. That's on All News Pipeline. Russia says U.S. airstrikes in Syria came within an inch of military clash with their forces. Satellite imagery suggests the base that was struck is home to Russian special forces and military helicopters. That's on The Independent. Weather modification? What is this weird microwave pulse coming from Antarctica? It's on the Daily Sheeple. And here you can see the weird pulse. That is definitely something that I've never seen before. It's coming, obviously it's coming from the south. It's coming from Antarctica. Here's a video too if you want to watch that. It's on the Daily Sheeple. Russian warship heading for U.S. Navy destroyers that launched Syrian attack. That's on AmericanMilitaryNews.com. From Dave Hodges of The Common Sense Show, World War III is here. Syria's Reichstag moment. The neocons have won. Why wouldn't Trump approach Putin and have a dialogue prior to the massive missile attack? Wouldn't this be consistent to what he pledged to do during the campaign? Yeah, everybody's scratching their heads about this. And more about the terror in Sweden. Norway police to be armed in wake of Stockholm atrocity. Inches from death. Video shows Stockholm truck whizzing past as pedestrians dive for cover. That's on the Express. And from Liberty Blitzkrieg, prepare for impact. This is the beginning of the end for the U.S. empire. And make sure you tune into Lost Arts Radio on Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for our interview with Sally O and her husband Lysander Venable, where we'll be discussing the Amish farmer Sam Gerard, who was caught selling a herbal topical salve that now has landed him in jail, and he is still sitting there after months, and he's awaiting sentencing. The FDA has come down hard on him, and he faces a maximum of 68 years in prison, federal prison, for mislabeling a salve. So it's a really interesting story. We have a petition right on the homepage of LostArtsRadio.com. If you would, please go there and read about it. Sign the petition if you would. We're trying to get this in front of Trump, where ultimately he could pardon Sam. All right, that's all for today's Diamond Report. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Please, if you would, like, share, and subscribe to my channel for further updates, and I will see you tomorrow.